Electoral matters for you now. The uMkhonto weSizwe party heading to the Electoral Court to challenge the IEC's decision to disqualify former President Jacob Zuma from standing for office. The commission has decided to uphold an objection to Zuma's appearing on a candidate list of the MK party. But the new political organization is pushing back against this on a number of fronts. Let's understand this a bit better. SABC News reporter Canny Maphanga is watching developments and joins us now live from the High Court in Johannesburg. And as I mentioned there, Canny, the MK party is citing a number of grounds why they believe the IEC's decision was wrong. What are those reasons?
Well, good morning to you, Ayanda, and to the viewers at home. The central question before the Electoral Court, sitting in the Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg this morning, is whether Section 47, subsection 1E of the Constitution applies to the former President Jacob Zuma. The viewers may well know that he is ranked number 1 on uMkhonto weSizwe political party's candidate list. However, the IEC upheld an objection to disqualify him as his candidature is in contravention of Section 47, subsection 1E of the Constitution, which deals with members of the National Assembly. So essentially what that section states is that if you have been convicted of an offence and sentenced to imprisonment of 12 months or more, you are disqualified from standing for public office. That disqualification continues for another 5 years until you've completed your sentence. So with that alone, based on that objection, the former president, if it is upheld by the Electoral Court, will not be able to contest the 2024 elections. Now, there are several grounds that the counsel on behalf of the former president, Jacob Zuma, will argue that this legislation, or the constitutional law rather, that is being backed on to disqualify him does not actually qualify or rather speak to the former president. They'll raise several grounds, such as the IEC's decision on the 28th of March 2024, stating that they had not been given notice of this decision, and because of that, that decision is procedurally unfair or irregular. They'll raise another issue of a bias. Now, you may remember in those papers they have cited a January 2024 report, a media report, in which one of the commissioners, Janet Love, is quoted as saying that the former president cannot stand for public office, and it's attributed to the IEC as a whole. So now the counsel for the former president will state that the IEC had already prejudged the situation before an objection could even be brought to them in January, when they stated that he could not stand for office. So they already made up their minds prior to an objection being brought, even though we've seen this discussion being held in the public domain since the former president has endorsed that political party. However, the IEC only upheld that objection in March. Now, they'll also deal with this issue of the conviction and the sentence. Now, with respect to that, Ayanda, they'll state that the sanction that the president got, the former president rather, in the Constitutional Court, was a criminal sanction. However, it was given in the civil proceedings of the Constitutional Court, not in the criminal court. He didn't go before a judge, he was not criminally charged, and he didn't get that constitutional right to a fair trial. So they'll say there's no conviction that exists when it comes to the former president. Then when you speak of the sentence, you may remember that the former president was one of the beneficiaries of the remission of sentence that was done recently in order to alleviate overcrowding in prisons. Now, his 15-month sentence was then effectively reduced to 3 months. His counsel will say that this is short of the yardstick of 12 months, which would disqualify him from that candidature. And then they'll overall rely on the Electoral Court judgment with respect to Freedom Front Plus versus Winnie Madikizela Mandela. You may remember that judgment. They attempted to do the same, which was to disqualify her candidature. However, the court looked at Section 47, subsection 1E of the Constitution against the backdrop of the fundamental rights that are afforded to individuals. Those are the political rights that allow one to stand for office. And in balancing those two, they found that that limitation was unjustifiable.
All right, Canny Maphanga, thanks very much indeed. Great context to what we expect to take place inside court. But as is traditionally the case, whenever the MK party is appearing before any kind of legal proceedings, there's typically a lot of support just outside the chambers. And that's where we find our Natasha Piri, who's watching that leg of the big story for us. And Natasha, just a short while ago, we actually saw the former president actually arrive.
That's quite correct, Ayanda. We just saw former President Jacob Zuma, while you were speaking to Canny, arrive here at court. And of course, this is a common sight that you always see. MK supporters coming out in their numbers, Ayanda, to actually support the party leader. And today might not be different. Despite the rain, despite the weather, these party supporters have decided to brave these weather conditions and, of course, support, their party leader in his bid here outside court. Let me just see if I can just try speak to the MK supporters outside here. We were hoping to see the spokesperson, the interim spokesperson earlier on, Mr. Ntamulondlela or Ujabulani Khumalo, but unfortunately that is not the case as yet. Hopefully when they come here we'll get to speak to them. But let's just perhaps gauge the atmosphere of the people outside here. Putunjani, just engaging the atmosphere. You've braved the cold weather conditions, but you still came out here as an MK supporter to support your former President Jacob Zuma.
Greeting to the media, and then this is a privilege that we're here, running or not. This is Kyangi Figile. We are behind JZ because we know the political ideology. He is very clear that our country has been deprived all the human rights in terms of the basic of this country as promised with the former President Nelson Mandela. May his soul rest in peace. Unfortunately, the leaders of the current administration of ANC has diverted to the social economical information that should be given to the people. Unfortunately, in our country at the moment, we're at a stage whereby we need to make sure that we're taking over. That is why we're here today. And I will make sure that we support JZ because he is very clear and he is very sure himself that when it's going to his rest, for the time the God has taken his time, he will make sure that he has laid the ground in terms of taking care of these people of this country. Raining as it is, we are not care. All what we are care of the country, that it must come back to its own people.
Mr. Figile, the MK party seems quite confident that, the MK will actually win this bid against the IEC. How confident are you? I mean, tomorrow the Electoral Court has to come out with the decision whether or not former President Jacob Zuma will stand as a candidate of the MK party.
Look, we do understand the constitutional rights and we do understand the law. But then as I'm standing here as a mass, I don't want to take over the speaker of the MK, which is the Ndlela. So he will lay grounds of how we are confident with the case that is going to happen inside. But then just a hint to you, we know Section 47 now it does apply. So we're definitely sure, personally where I'm standing, that we will definitely win this case. Absolutely, without a doubt with it.
Let me try to take this conversation to this gentleman. So you heard what Mr. Figile had to say. He's quite confident that despite what Section 47 stipulates, that, if you serve, a sentence, you won't be able actually to I beg your pardon, let me just restate this, right? Okay. So according to Section, 47, you are, I beg your pardon. Oh my gosh. Apologies for that, our viewers at home. Let me just come back and, just raise this question. So here we have former President Jacob Zuma. According to the spokesperson of the MK party, says he was not given the option to appeal his 15-month sentence, and the subsequent remission of his sentence was not taken into account when the IEC took the decision that he be barred from standing as a candidate of the MK party. What do you have to say to this?
Okay, us as the youth of the MK party, we take charge in making sure that the future of MK party is in our hands. So 80% of the voters of the MK party right now are people under the age of 35, sorry. So us as we take charge in making sure that we vote for the MK party. The ruling inside that comes out today will state that Zuma is indeed the president that has to stand in office today, tomorrow, and forever. Thank you, ma'am.
And you're quite confident that you're going to win this case?
Very confident.
If the Electoral Court comes at a different determination?
Then from there we'll take charge. The leadership are going to keep, the leadership inside are going to send out communication for the masses, and then we'll take it from there. We'll hear from the spokesperson of the National Party. As the masses here, we're here to support the MK party inside.
Thank you so much. Well, Ayanda, you've got it from various views here from the various MK party supporters that are outside court. I must apologize for earlier on. I'd actually tried to quote section 47 there of the Constitution. But of course, these things do happen. We do make mistakes sometimes as people. But of course, you've got the views here outside court from these various MK supporters. And the expectation later on is that former President Jacob Zuma will be addressing these MK party supporters despite the weather that is outside. And of course, as SABC News, we ourselves will be braving the weather and bring you all the latest updates in regards to the story. With that said, it's back to you in studio, Ayanda.
You're absolutely forgiven, Natasha. There are a number of moving parts in the story, and I think it's still well told nonetheless. Natasha Piri, part of our team outside the High Court in Johannesburg, Canny Maphanga inside court, watching all the different moving parts around this very important story indeed.